this stool, 3 legs, live. Carolyn Schmidt, super glad you're here. Same with you, Action Account. My name is Dr. Renee Ostertag. I am a physical therapist and a psychotherapist, which makes me a nervous system ninja. And I am here to help you do the same. Become more confident, skilled, and be able to navigate the different colors and expressions of your nervous system with more ease. These are colors with words on them. We're going to go through that a little bit, as well as this today. I am going to be talking about social anxiety and this idea of collective social atrophy that I just made up with about 5 minutes ago. I created that language because that's what makes sense to me post-pandemic. And so I'm going to be talking today about social anxiety. And so what you're going to see is social anxiety, what to do about it, why it's here, and how to make it better. And if you stay till the end, you're going to get 9 concrete skills, perspectives, and hacks that you can do and apply starting today, going into the holidays, so that you can have a little less discomfort in this oftentimes super triggering, activating, uncomfortable time for people. So I am curious in the comments, live and later, does social anxiety live inside of you? And if it does, how do you experience it? So I'm going to give you a minute to jot some feedback in the comments there, because I'd love to hear, how does social anxiety show up for you? For me, it's less anxiety, and it's more of a twofold body-mind experience where my body's really tense and my breathing's very shallow. And it's not so much for me anxiety as it is more anger, which is interesting. So my system goes a little more fight in the context of social anxiety. And I think that's part of it, which is a side note of knowing how does it show up for you, because it's slightly different for everybody. And this idea of collective social atrophy. My background initially for the last 20 plus years is as a physical therapist, and I find the body a helpful frame of reference to understand more about the mind. And we all know if we don't go to the gym, if we don't work out, we get weaker. And that's not a character flaw. That's biology, stimulus and response. If you stimulate a muscle with stress, it will respond with what is called hypertrophy. So you work the bicep and it gets bigger. And it's also the same in reverse. If you don't go to the gym, if you don't work the bicep, again, not a character flaw, but the bicep will go smaller. It will atrophy. And it's the same with our nervous system circuits responsible for social engagement, the circuits that let us connect safely with other people. They can hypertrophy with exercise, they can grow bigger, or they can atrophy with lack of stimulus, i.e., our social circuits grow smaller, they grow weaker. And I think that's a big driver of the present day social anxiety, is that we have all been forced into this position of less social stimulus. With the pandemic, with all of the isolation and withdrawal and fear that has kept us separate from other people, neurologically, that has had an atrophy effect on our nervous systems. And the muscles required to engage with other people become atrophied, weaker. And so they're less tolerant of stress. And Carolyn Schmidt, you said it well, feeling overwhelmed with outside input. Of course you are. I am too. So many of us are. And I think in part it is because our muscles that could deal with the input of life around us became atrophied. And so now when we're trying or expecting that we should go out and do these social things around the holidays, so many of us are anxious and nervous and stressed because our muscles, the nervous system circuits of social engagement, have become atrophied and weakened. And I saw this myself this past weekend. I had to go. I chose to go. Maybe that's an added bonus. Do you have to or do you choose to? I chose to go to a brunch with a group of girlfriends. And if I'm telling the truth, I didn't want to go. I was already overwhelmed with all of the life stimulus from the end of the year. And I was just like, that's the last fucking thing I want to do. I don't want to go to this social engagement thing. And I had to sort of force myself to go because I was like, I have to go. I committed to go. So I forced myself to go. And I'm pissed off the whole time. I'm resentful and pretty cagey, ragey, rah, like a caged tiger, right? Like I have all this pent up energy and nowhere to go with it. And thank you, Ashley. So glad I'm not alone. And that's a key feature of social anxiety. We're all going through it. And that can help with the shame and the isolation, right? Like trying to fight my bad languages. We can remind ourselves to breathe. Yeah, there's so many tools. And so as I'm going to this brunch, I'm overwhelmed, I'm angry, and I'm pretty disconnected from my tools to regulate my nervous system, to the extent that I almost told my friend, I'm not going. And when I get in that heightened of a state, I'm stressed, I'm really like high red energy, I cannot manage time well. And so I was 20 minutes late. And I told the hostess I was going to be early. And she sent me a text and she's like, well, I guess 12:50 was a pipe dream. And I almost texted back. I said, if it's better for you, I can turn around and go home. Like super manipulative, like asshole energy from me. I don't like it. And yes, Ashley, you feel me. I feel you. We're in this together. And so I get there, I'm pretty like, I want to stay away from people, like, right. And so I found one person in this group of people that was a safe person for me. And here's the first trick, I think, to manage social anxiety. It's to tell the truth about how you are feeling to a safe person. So I told the truth to somebody else at the party. And I said, look, I don't want to be here. And she was like, oh, thank God, me neither. And that helped lower the arousal of my nervous system. And so when we can tell the truth about the state of affairs that we're dealing with, it helps lower the state of excitation in your nervous system. And this is where I find this chart to be super helpful. Okay. This chart is a modification of the Mood Meter by Mark Brackett, who founded the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence. And he wrote a book called Permission to Feel. Beautiful, wonderful resource. And I look at this as a way to give me orientation to my nervous system. I was driving to this party feeling totally out of control and totally ragey. Thank you, Ashley. And telling the truth to another person helped lower the energy of my nervous system. And I think the second trick, I'm going to give you 9 tricks today. The first trick is tell the truth to a safe person. The second trick is tell the truth to yourself. And when I'm in a heightened state and overwhelmed, it's often difficult to find language that articulates how your nervous system is being experienced by you. So I reference this chart. I look at, all right, let me do a nervous system pulse check. The state of affairs in my nervous system. Energy 1 to 10, where am I? I'm at a solid 8, maybe 9. What's the pleasantness of this moment. Oh, like a 1 or a 2. Oh, okay. So if I'm a 9 energy, 1 to 10, 9 energy, and 1 to 2, livid and furious, yeah. And then I can start to look at the language and go, yeah, I'm furious and frustrated and fuming. Like those start to tell the truth to me. Name it to tame it. If we start to tell the truth to ourselves and we can identify the state of our affairs in our nervous system, naming it starts to lower the arousal physiologically in your nervous system. Acknowledgement, exactly. Acknowledge the feelings that are happening and recognize that every feeling has what's called an emotional motor program. When I'm furious, that is the motor program, right? The emotion has a movement, a motor expression. Hi, Angie Werner. I'm so glad you're joining, and I'm so glad you're here talking today about social anxiety and 9 tricks to manage it. This is blessed be, Ashley, indeed. And so the first 2 tricks are to tell the truth. Tell the truth to another person about what you're feeling or experiencing, and tell the truth to yourself. And that starts to lower the arousal. The second thing I think to tell the truth to about yourself is regarding something called your default mode network. Now, your default mode network is what is the default mode of your nervous system's operating system, the way it operates in the world. So in the context of other people, what is your default mode network? I'm going to ask you this question, and I want you to just notice what comes up in your nervous system. What is it like for you to be around other people? And just notice what comes up in your body. Do you have rigidity? Do you have tension? Do you have softening? Do you have opening? What is your body's default mode network when it comes to other people? It's called neural expectancy. What is your nervous system expecting as a baseline in the context of other people? Carolyn Schmidt, absolutely wanting to pull away. That's a beautiful truth. When I told the truth about my nervous system in the moment, my knee-jerk response, I wrote it down. Literally, and I'm quoting my notes, people suck and they're assholes. And I need to take care of them, and I'm super resentful about it. Which makes sense to me that default mode network is there coming from 20 plus years as a healthcare provider. My nervous system has a lot of reps of encountering other people and needing to take responsibility for their well-being because they're coming to me to help me feel better. And then I can relate, Carolyn, to what you said. Like there's the first reaction of like, oh, I want to pull away, right? I have the same one, except I go a little more angry than anxious. And then there's the second response, right? So knee-jerk is the first one. What's the second one? That's oftentimes a more truer expression of desire that could be connected to your heart. And my second response to how do you feel about other people, there's deep longing to be in union and harmony and connection with other people. Carolyn, I'm guessing you can relate. Same with you, Ashley. Same with you, Angie. Like everybody here, we can relate to how confusing this can be because the nervous system operates so quickly. 400 billion actions per second in the non-conscious mind. There's a lot happening. So telling the truth to yourself, what's the default mode network? What's the neural expectancy? First thought, best thought. What is your knee-jerk reaction to the thought of being in proximity with other people. Like, as I just say that, my stomach tenses. Okay, then tell the truth. What's the next thought after that? If you think about that first thought as a wave, what's the next thought? Oh, Carolyn. I just read Carolyn's response that said, tears, thank you for naming the longing, because I think underneath the social atrophy that we're all suffering from is this deep, deep, deep heart desire. I'm getting chills as I say it, to connect with a fellow human, because they can be medicine. They can also be monster. And recognizing that both are true. And when we can start to recognize, yes, in the context of other people, I have some red energy, right? High energy, less pleasant. But there's also longing, right? Like joy, fulfillment, being touched, being moved. Those are more green words. And so recognizing that your system has choice beyond the default mode network, beyond the first reaction, there's a second wave. And what is that for you when it comes to being in proximity with other people? And just recognizing that that's there too. And that leads to the third trick that I call MDT it. And that's actually a physical therapy form of treatment called mechanical diagnosis and treatment. What that's like, again, I'm going to relate it to physical body back pain. Many people have back pain, and it hurts in various degrees of positions, postures, life activities. But a lot of people try to make their back pain better by bending forward and stretching out the muscles. And that is oftentimes what we call a short-term solution, creating a long-term problem. Now, how does this relate to anxiety? We run away from people because we're going to that knee-jerk first thing we want to do. And we don't stick around for the second thing. With back pain, often in the world of mechanical diagnosis and treatment, they want to do this, but what they need to do is this. You need to do the opposite of what your inclination is doing. And when people do this at first, it sucks. It hurts. It doesn't feel good. I don't want to do it. And my job as a PT is like, okay, yes, and what happens next? Because 90+% of the time, if we get people moving like this, they don't feel good during, but after they feel better. And it's the same with social anxiety. That first response, I don't want to be here, I want to run away. If you can bear that wave and lean into the second one, it will often yield that you feel better after doing the thing you don't want to do. And I noticed this at the brunch that I went to on Sunday. I was super high energy, uncomfortable, like didn't want to be there leading up to it. During being there, it wasn't awful. It wasn't great, but it was like a little kind of uneasy. So I was shifting towards the middle. So before, during, and then after, I felt straight up fulfilled. And I felt joyful and grateful. And so after the party, I was here. And if we don't sometimes force ourselves to go to the social gym and exercise our neural networks, we're depriving ourselves of an opportunity to shift our nervous system and grow the muscles into the state of circuits that we actually long to be in, which is in connection to our heart, its desires, and other people at the same time. And so that's the third trick is notice your nervous system before, during, and after social engagement, because what often happens is that the worst is the stickiest in our nervous system and in our memories. Like the worst thing about something leaves the longest, strongest, biggest skid mark on your nervous system. And that's the one we're wired to pay attention to, but it's not reflective of the whole of the experience. And that's why it's so important to look also after the event. How are you feeling? Relieved, proud of yourself because you did this uncomfortable thing and you worked circuits that have gotten atrophied during a pandemic, happened to us all, and you're back to the gym and hypertrophying them. Like that's something worth celebrating. So I'm glad it makes sense to you, Carolyn. And I'm wondering, has anybody experienced that? Like social anxiety, didn't want to go, but after you were glad you did. Has anybody had that experience? And what stands out to you in the experience? The fact that you didn't want to go, or the fact that you went and you were glad you did after? That's worth thinking about. Like looking in the past, have you had experiences where you didn't want to go and you did? What part of that event stands out in your memory? I would challenge you to go back in your mind and think of something that you didn't want to do. You went and it was good after. Like, let that be the sticky part in your memory. Let that leave a bigger skid mark on your nervous system. Yeah, action account. Reality is never like expectation. You already know it's just easier to do stuff than regretting, right? And so that's great. Like your past experience teaches you, your expectation and reality have a mismatch. And it was the same for me with this party. I didn't want to go. I love that I went. And if I make choices in my life according to this expectation, I'm going to stay stuck in an isolated pit of despair and have a lot of depression in my life. And then I'm going to try and get out of the depression by going into anxiety, which leads me to, yes, Angie, I'm so glad. Social atrophy is absolutely what's happened to me. I feel sad reading that because it's so true. And it's been 20 plus years of atrophy. And I hope you have a way to start out of the dark. You know, Angie, the fact that you're here is a start. Right now, you are running social engagement circuits, albeit virtual. Your brain is getting reps that another human being is not dangerous in this moment, just for now. Yes, understanding you're depriving yourself of good opportunities, Carolyn. Yes, yes, yes. Understanding our choices. So the way out of the dark, I think the first thing leads directly into the fourth trick that I had. And it's this: telling the truth. I'm in a pit of despair, isolation, social atrophy. The fourth trick is to recognize that social anxiety actually has an underlying positive intention that is here to support you. And what I mean by that, this chart shows a map of the nervous system and the way that it responds to safety and threat. And for many of us, other people have become a threat. More so lately, it's never been a problem before and now it is, or you've always had people are a threat, which tells me your nervous system has a lot more practice in this red fight or flight state than this green social engagement state. This is not a character flaw. This is biology. So if your nervous system, hello, Jim. Chios. It's great to see you here. So if you have, so Jim, right there, making a comment, that's an example of social engagement. Curious, safe, connected, Like this stuff gives these nervous system circuits give us access to brain regions that are connected to our heart, to joy, being grounded, present, safe, curious, open. Okay, if social anxiety is a thing for you, there's probably nervous system circuits running in fight or flight, rage, fury, anxiety, worry, and concern. And that's not a character flaw, that's brain region biology, where other people somewhere in your system aren't safe. I want to run away or I want to fight them. And this is great for short-term use, but it's not a long-term way to live. And so if the system can't find safety, it'll cool off by going into freeze. And this is the social atrophy. This is the disconnection. And when we're here, we biologically are shut down, and that does not enable social engagement or connection with another. And here's the key piece: the social anxiety is actually trying to get you back down to these green circuits. The underlying positive intention of social anxiety is to give you the energy, the fuel, the fire to wake up your freeze. When you're frozen, you need a fire to thaw you out. And that is the great news about social anxiety. It is not the devil entirely. It is uncomfortable. It is unpleasant. It is various expressions. I want to run away. I want to fight, whatever it is for you. But recognize that it has an underlying positive intention and your system is trying to help you out. Now, if I'm just going to totally go with this, if this was social anxiety and I'm me, it would want to tell me, would you stop hating me because I'm here to help you? All right. So befriending your anxiety, or at least considering the possibility that it's on your side and it's here to help you. And I think the second piece to that fourth trick is recognizing the positive intent of anxiety, which gives you some degree of new awareness. It also can help connect you to compassion. Lassart, I can't remember his name right now, the first one, he has a quote: hell is other people. And so every time you're going to a social engagement, have compassion for yourself. This is a tricky, difficult situation. Now, the sixth trick. Carolyn, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. I learned from somebody, and they talked about activating your inner puppy power. Now, I'm not going to lie, this did not work for me in the moment. What is activating your inner puppy power? So think about a puppy. They're glad to see everybody. They don't have social anxiety. Now, there's this saying, you spot it, you got it. If you can spot in a puppy a genuine sense of excitement at the concept of seeing other people, if you can spot that energy in a puppy, that means you got that. And that lives in your body as an emotional motor program. You have circuits of puppy energy that wants to be around people. And that energy in you is a source of power. It is a green resource that helps you move into the second wave after anxiety, into the green. Joyful curiosity about, who is this person? Now, I don't advocate going up to somebody and like jumping all over them like you're a puppy, but channeling your own inner puppy. I think it's brilliant. And it's also helpful that I have a dog who, is very not in this moment, but in general, very excited to see people. So I get a lot of reps in my nervous system. Yes, they're so excited. Carolyn, you can channel your inner kitty energy. And it didn't work for me in the moment, but I think it's because the wave of all that was happening was bigger than the strength of my inner puppy power circuits. And so here's what I would recommend for that. Every time you're in the context of other people, driving down the road, I look out that window right now and I see a human. When you're at the grocery store or the bank or at a family gathering, if you can remember, find my inner puppy. That sounds so weird coming out of my mouth. And what I mean by that is when you spot the puppy, you got it. So you have within you the circuits to be excited in the context of other people. And that is a neurological circuit within you. You can practice that just like you can go to the gym and lift weights and practice building a bigger bicep. So if you start practicing a felt sense connection to your inner puppy, the circuits in you that have and experience genuine excitement at the thought of being around other people, that's worth running. And I'll tell you right now, as I'm talking about it, I feel like an opening in my heart. And imagine for a moment, for you, when I think about a puppy that's excited to see people, what do I notice in my body? I can't not smile. And I feel it in my heart. And when I connect to those circuits, I am training my social engagement system. The vagus nerve, head and heart, it's very dialed into that. And the more reps you can do tuning into a felt sense of your inner puppy or kitty, the more you're building the circuits of social anxiety. You can even do it watching TV or this, like do it with me here now. So that's inner puppy power. It didn't work for me on Sunday, but I'm going to keep trying to remember every time I'm around people to feel into the felt sense program of my puppy. And Ashley says the trees have been trying. Yeah. So Ashley's connecting to trees for help. Everybody, whatever it is that works for you is brilliant. Okay. So channeling your inner puppy. The second idea that didn't work for me on Sunday, but I think could work with more reps, just like the inner puppy, is this idea or thought or possibility that every single human being, as messed up and porcupiney as we are, and when I say porcupiney, I mean you got spikes, and when other people get close, you puncture them, you poke them, you hurt them. So when you think about other people, yes, we're monsters and hurt one another, but also we're medicine. And this thought or idea that every single person has something in their life that's exciting. And if you knew what that was, like it could make your life better. That requires a lot of curiosity. And that's a good thought to entertain. And as you entertain that thought, if you keep doing it, you can spill over into a feeling and a behavior. Hello, eminent fire rising. It's great to see you here. Right? So this thought or idea that everybody has something valuable that could be exciting and add value to my life. Again, that's something I'm practicing walking down the street with my dog. I look at other people and I think, I wonder what they have that's exciting. And I remember the idea that other people are flawsome, right? They're awesome and flawed, and that's flawsome, and that makes my life better. And the more I can practice those circuits, they get stronger, and it starts to get bigger than the social anxiety response. And so I've lost track. I think that was number 8. How are these ideas landing for you, by the way? Give me comments. Are they totally harebrained? Are they like wildly cool? Are they great ideas that you won't actually use? Tell me more what you think. The second to last thought is randomly Bette Midler's song came on this morning while I was getting ready for my day, From a Distance. And I was born in 78. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. And the movie Beaches was such a beautiful movie for me to watch. It was touching. It was about friendship and sisterhood and life and death. And this song, From a Distance by Bette Midler. And there was 2 lines in there that I thought were really helpful in the context of social atrophy and social anxiety. And the first line was this: from a distance, we are instruments marching in a common band. And I find a lot of peace thinking about Earth is a rock spinning on an axis in the middle of this big, giant universe. And it has a way of taking what I think is a big deal and making it really, really, really little, like that pale blue dot, Carl Sagan's video. So when we think about this tiny little rock in the middle of a big, giant, vast universe, from a distance, we are instruments marching in a common band. I am an instrument, and an instrument plays sound, and that sound can contribute to your sound and Joe's sound and whoever's sound, and together we can make a song. And that song can be really beautiful, it can be really awful, or everything in between. I don't have control over anything in the world other than sometimes my skin encased body. And I want to do my best to contribute the best sound that I can to this world that we're all instruments in from a distance. And then the second line, from a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at war. And from a distance, that which seems like an enemy, it could be a friend. And that's a nice thought that evokes a breath and more calm and more peace in me. So Carolyn, you like the idea of remembering kitten excitement. Oh, I can feel the energy there, like especially one of them so curious about everything. And you love that about him, and you spot it, you got it, you have it in you. You can work those circuits. I find this so life-giving and hopeful, and there's possibility. And yes, Eminent Fire Rising, it's about vibrations. Like, what vibration is my nervous system holding in any given moment? Yeah, and things annoying our cars. Absolutely, there's sound that has meaning, and it has an impact on your nervous system that elevates the arousal into annoyance. That's a more red energy. That's good to know, right? Telling the truth to yourself. What's my default mode network? This thing elicits this response in me. Okay, great. When you start to name it, you can tame it. Do we vibrate together? Absolutely, we vibrate together. Entrainment, mirror neurons, resonance circuitry, I yawn, you yawn. And what I find interesting, I can't remember the name of the law in this moment, but whoever's energy is the stronger one, the less strong will resonate with that. So like tuning forks, the bigger fork has a certain wave, the smaller fork has a certain wave. And I think I'm right here, but I'm not a sound expert. But I think the smaller one starts to sync up to the sound wave of the bigger one. And so that's, all connected to the problem. Like many of us as instruments playing in a common song, we're all like resonating and singing a song in this blue red. And more are joining because it's getting bigger and stronger. And that's why it's so important for us to remember these green circuits, the kittens, the idea that people are awesome and not physically dangerous in any given moment most of the time. That will start to build this up and hypertrophy our social engagement circuits. And the last thing I want to share with you is a story from a patient client of mine. He actually found me through YouTube and we've been working together, and he's awesome, super fun to work with because he's this example of somebody who has had a default mode network in his nervous system that other people are dangerous. And he, in his life, pretty much angry, anxious, depressed. Like those were his three modes for like 40 years. And after about 6 months of working together, he's been doing these physical exercises every day, and we work together. He told me last week, Renee, just for curiosity, I went and I walked through a mall to see how my body would respond. And I didn't have that fight flight response. Like it was very weird for me because people have always been dangerous to me. And it was like for the first time I felt in my body that they weren't dangerous. And it was almost weird. So I share that story with you that it's possible. We can indeed hypertrophy our circuits of social engagement. And sometimes we do just need some distance, from a distance, new thought, new perspective. And the one exercise that he does a lot, and I have a video on this one, it's called neck retraction. He actually does this exercise called neck retraction, and he says it helps him. And so what neck retraction is it's just pulling your head straight back like that. And it's funny because this will often fight or flight. Like this is the common emotional motor program for fight or flight, right? And this one is like shame, disconnect, like super down, forward head. And so the corrective exercise physically that works for a lot of people, besides the vagus nerve reset, is this neck retraction exercise where you actually just pull your head straight back. And it's a way to connect your head to your heart. It's a way to get yourself back in alignment. It's a way to engage circuits of your vagus nerve connection to head and heart. So those are all my thoughts. I think if you go through the video, you'll see 9. And I am just tracking the conversation here and just so grateful for all of you being here today. Carolyn, much love with your kitties. And starting the new year, we'll be doing lives every Monday, and it'll be in the banner 10:30 Mountain Standard Time. So practice the neck retraction, celebrate yourself every time you do, because you're hypertrophying social engagement circuits. Have lots of compassion for yourself. We all have atrophy. People, are hell, but they can also be heaven. And I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for being here today. Tune in Mondays, 10:30, starting in 2023. Thank you so much.